next up on the chopping block for me to tear into their content is Isaac Butterfield, who put out a video called "I'm Sorry for My Transphobia," which should be an interesting look into what he thinks is transphobic, and how ironic this title is going to be. But we shall see. I do not have many good things to say about Isaac Butterfield, but he's one of those people who hides behind the jokes that he makes, rather than owning any kind of positions or prescriptions. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and doesn't think about what constitutes him being transphobic, and we will check out his video and see what he has to say for himself about these issues. Let's go.
Man is back. I'm back on the road doing live stand-up comedy shows. It's been too long. In 2009.
Where's the actual start of the segment? There we go.
Fuckers, the Buttsman here. If you didn't know, I'm a comedian from Australia, and this video right here is one
starting off badly. I mean, I do like Australia.
That I absolutely shouldn't have to make. But it is the world that we live in.
I mean, it's literally just got a fucking soy boys thing in the background. And what was it? Just said, "Fuck you" to the winner's t-shirt. Clearly there's someone who is interested in civil discourse.
People disagree with what you say publicly, you will be labelled with words that they throw around willy-nilly that will affect you for the rest of your days. Words like racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic. These words will follow you.
What's interesting is that I actually agree. I actually agree with Isaac Butterfield on these with the statements that he's making. Just randomly calling somebody a transphobe or a racist or a misogynist doesn't really do anything. That's not a critique. That's just a moral impugning of somebody. That's a smear. That's what that is, actually just a smear. What you need to do is describe people's behaviour, describe what they do, describe the material impact of their actions. Instead of calling someone a racist, tell someone that what you're doing is racism, or you're not a transphobe. What you're doing is transphobia. That way people actually understand the impact of their actions, rather than trying to fit people neatly into some kind of bad or good or bad boxes and teams, which, people are far more complicated than that. And quite frankly, randomly morally impugning individuals is not something that I actually care about doing, because all that does is self-aggrandizement for your own, personal virtue in comparison. Whereas critiquing somebody's actions actually changes how they will materially act in future to make life better for people overall, and that creates better societies. If we should start looking at people's actions rather than randomly smearing who they are as if you can somehow uncritically divine what's actually inside the head of their hearts, outside of what they're saying and what they're doing, that doesn't give you anything if you do that. Rather than an actual critique of the actions and understanding the material impact of what those actions do in the real world.
Around. And the vast majority of people watching this video know that I'm not any of those things. I've made that abundantly clear. But in the world where the boy
I mean, you haven't made it abundantly clear. If you'd made it abundantly clear, then these things wouldn't stick to you so easily.
The they, them who cries wolf all the fucking time, you get labelled shit non-stop. It is actually quite interesting to sit back and watch people attack you because you've dared to comment on something that doesn't affect you personally. So let's take the first word, sex.
I mean, also agree with him there in that this, you can't comment on this because you're part of X power group, isn't a good critique. That's dogmatic. What you should be saying is, well, you don't quite understand that point of view because you're from this dominant power group, right? There's a different way of being able to phrase that, to be able to understand the intersection analysis, by saying, well, you can't talk about issues affecting women or trans people because you're a man or you're cis. But what you've got to say is that, well, clearly you're not quite in tune with the experiences that these people understand, because you've never seen these firsthand, and you probably haven't even looked at the data about these issues either.
Sexist. Am I a sexist? No. Why? Because I'm just fucking not. I treat people with respect regardless of whatever gender they happen.
Do you treat them with respect, though? Do you really treat them with respect? Is making jokes where the explicit punchline is the fact they are a certain gender or whatever, just the whole joke? Is that respect? No, I don't think that is. I would definitely not call that respect. So, for example, saying if you look at, for example, let's say the ironic misogyny. Let's take Vorsh as an example, someone whose content, literally 5 seconds ago, I was praising. Let's take his ironic misogyny with J.K. Rowling, for example. Is that respectful towards women as a group of people? No, because he's the ironic misogyny that he was engaging in. The joke was just about women on International Women's Day. There was no pointed critique of J.K. Rowling's transphobia or pointed critique of what she's doing with regards to International Women's Day. It was just, haha, woman, bad, it's International Women's Day, so this is ironically funny. Where that's, the whole bunch of the joke is just women as a group of people, right? I don't think that's particularly funny or particularly respectful. And you can understand, like, if that was being serious, then it would be serious sexism. Obviously, ironic sexism is still just as bad, but sorry, it's still just as sexist, rather. It's just not as bad, if you get what I mean. But neither of these show respect. So I don't know how you could say that somebody who makes consistent jokes that are of sexist in nature could say they specifically respect people of all genders, when there are only certain minorities that do not the frequent targets of this man's ire or this man's humour or this man's humiliation in the form of comedy. That's what he does. He humiliates people using comedy. He humiliates groups. He targets them for their immutable characteristics and the things that they have to go through. Because again, I'll probably talk about trans people later on, but the problem is people say, well, does that mean you can't joke about trans people? Like, well, of course you can make jokes about trans people, but you don't know what's funny about trans people. The trans existence is incredibly amusing. There are plenty of funny things that we have to engage in as trans people. There's a really good Contra video called The Darkness that elucidates further on this. But that's why incredibly fucking lowest common denominator, I identify as an Apache attack helicopter jokes aren't funny and are insulting and not respectful, but actual jokes of the trans experience from someone who's gone through it are good, because comedy is a lot of the time about empathy, and I can't empathise with Isaac about trans issues because he's not trans. He doesn't know.
To be, but people label me with that shit, particularly after a few weeks ago I made that video about hairy underarm chicks just to piss some people off, and it fucking worked. It went super.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Have you not maybe considered that your joke just being, this is bad, this pissed people off, isn't respectful? In what world do you think this is respectful? Yeah, exactly. Look, even this comment here, you don't have to find it attractive, but to find it repulsive what separates the men from the boys. I mean, yeah, finding the natural existence of women in how they are born, how they come out the fucking womb, right? With hair on them, which obviously, over the course through puberty, becomes, hair like you'd see on your head, right? Becomes essentially kind of pubic hair that they get on their underarms. Which, people of all fucking, birth sexes get. That's something that's unique to everybody. Everyone gets underarm hair. But the fact that he's specifically saying that this is repulsive on women rather than men, yes, this is sexism. I'm not saying that you are a sexist, because again, that's a pointless moral impugning of you as a person. But is this action that you're engaging in sexist? Yes, it is.
Viral. In fact, I ended up going on Dr. Phil, and then the episode got cancelled and pushed back. So watch that space. But in reality,
exactly, you're not doing it to make some pointed critique about the way people view women. You're saying women underarm hair bad and repulsive, and that means I got to go on Dr. Phil. How is that leading to us to think you're anything other than being sexist in that regard?
I was just putting my ideas out there that I thought underarm hair on chicks is a bit gross. Do I hate women with underarm hair? No, I just don't find it.
Yeah, I think I could think that men with beards are gross, but I don't find them attractive or anything. But the vast majority of people assigned male at birth on this planet have facial hair. That's just a thing that happens. If you want to decide to grow it out, that's your fucking business. I'm not going to critique you for that. I'm not going to mock you for that. I'm not going to use you. I'm not going to humiliate you for that, because that's what respect is, right? I think that somebody who says that all beards on men are repulsive is doing the exact same thing that you would be doing by saying that all women who have underarm hair are repulsive. It's just that, for some reason, you seem to think that underarm hair on women is repulsive, but not on men, when both of them have it, because everyone has fucking underarm hair, apart from people with alopecia.
A really appealing thing. Does that make me sexist, though, because I don't like hairy underarm chicks? No, it's just a preference, you fucking psychos. What about...
No, but you described it as repulsive. Right? There's a difference between saying, I have a preference for people who don't have underarm hair. I'm going to call you fucking bitch baby, because how many times do you spend sniffing people's underarms unless you have a fucking fetish? Right? How often is that something that ever's going to come up? You're entitled to have that preference. But to describe it like de facto as repulsive regardless. That's the sexist engager that you are behaving in there, Isaac.
The homophobic claim. I got off the phone to one of the guys who does some work for me the other day. He happens to be gay, and he said to me, "Oh, my friend told me the other day that you hate gay people." I said, "Do I?" For the record, I don't hate women. I don't hate gay people. Suck all the dicks. Be whatever gender you want. You do you, baby. Who cares? To put this whole thing about homophobia and me, to put that to bed, right? This is what...
Yeah, it's fine. Well, if you're gay, mate, I also stood next to a black man. He said I wasn't racist, so that proves I'm not racist. You look, that Condoleezza Rice was in the Oval Office with George Bush. That means he's not racist. Like, or he doesn't engage in racism. Like this, ugh. Gonna have an aneurysm. Just, if you'd have given us some examples of things that are critiquing you, actions that you've engaged in, jokes that you've made that could be perceived to be homophobic, then maybe that we can judge for ourselves, rather than you saying, well, I thought I wasn't being homophobic, and my gay mate says that I wasn't, so that proves that. That's all the totality of evidence that I need to convince you that I've not engaged in homophobia.
An Australian comedian who happens to be gay said about me when he met me. He said, "You're not like I thought you would. More people should meet you before they judge you." I'll let you in on a little secret. Me yelling...
Right, how about you put that into the content that you put online? Maybe if your content that you were putting out didn't engage in homophobia and didn't engage in sexism, maybe people wouldn't think that about you when you're not like what you are in person. Have you not considered that maybe with the online persona that you've created, you've cultivated a certain audience or cultivated a certain perception of you based on the jokes and things that you've made? If you were saying, well, if you actually got to know me, you'd realise I wasn't being sexist. I don't do sexism or homophobia in real life. Then maybe that's a problem with your online character that you've cultivated and the community that you've cultivated, right? There's a difference between these two things.
And screaming and carrying on. It's not always exactly how I actually feel. Sometimes it's just a bit of an act. In my real life, I'm not yelling and screaming and carrying on and being a piece of shit.
Then maybe the problem is the act, Isaac. That's what people have a problem with. If you don't want people to say that you're being homophobic and sexist and transphobic, don't put that into your fucking act, you stupid cunt.
I just look after my dogs and my lovely partner and we have a wonderful life. This is sometimes just for YouTube or on stage. It doesn't mean that I'm a pig all the time. Most of the time I am a pig. But anyway, on to the trans...
Because you understand that being unnecessarily provocative and attacking minorities for laughs, that gets you clicks. That makes you money. That's your job. Because engaging with these people who may or may not have their own homophobic or transphobic proclivities in their own mind, which then gets exacerbated by you then confirming their biases to them in comedic form. That's the issue that people have, right? You can make plenty. I mean, I've made in my past with regret. I have made homophobic and racist jokes previously, right? I'm sure most people have, especially white people and people in the West, right, made these kind of jokes, ironically, without any internal biases at play. But if someone else hears that, who does have those internal biases, they then get their own biases confirmed by you. That's the issue with these kind of jokes, because they serve not to challenge the things that are causing the overall oppression for these minority communities, right? That's why people talk about punching up and punching down with regards to humour. Again, own that and say, yes, that's fine, I understand that's happening, I don't care. You do what you want. I'm not telling you that you have to be censored for what you're saying. You can keep saying that, but part of putting your views out there is that people are going to critique the material impact of you maintaining those views and using your views to make money and make clicks. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm critiquing you for them, and you're saying, oh, I made these jokes and people are calling me homophobic and transphobic because of them. And it's like, well, then maybe that's a problem with the jokes that you're making. And if you don't want to hear those critiques, then maybe don't make those jokes.
Phobia claims. I really wanted to make this video because I wanted to put to bed some of the claims about me that I hate trans people, that I want to see trans people dead. It's ridiculous. Like, there are so many comments on Reddit, on Twitter, on YouTube about how much of a piece of shit I am and how much I hate people who are confused about their gender or have changed their gender or don't want to be the gender that they were born with.
Right, so I'm going to take this claim here that he's saying I don't want trans people to die, and then I'm going to move that forward because I genuinely think the vast majority of people who engage in transphobia online or are critical of trans people, whatever, the vast majority of these people do not want trans people to die. The vast majority of them, they are genuinely altruistic humans or whatever, or you're not, at least not like fucking internally evil humans, something like that. Most people are mostly just normal people. But what they don't understand is that the issue is not with what people's intentions are, what people think about trans people. The important thing is the material impact of what people do and say, and how this changes society, and what the overall paradigms that this perpetuates that overall harms people. But we'll see what he says.
First of all, I don't give a fuck what's between your legs or what you want to be. If you want to be that, all the power to your brother, sister, they, them. Do your fucking thing, all right? As long as you're not affecting other people, who cares? As far as pronouns, I reckon that neo-pronouns are ridiculous. This demisexual shit, shut the fuck up. But as far as if you want to be...
Well, demisexual isn't a pronoun, it's a sexuality. I mean, I could unleash some hot fucking takes, but I'm not going to do that right now. But that's not what the neo-pronouns and demisexuality are in no way related.
Called a she, a her, a they, a them. They, them's a bit weird. But a he or a him, okay.
I mean, they, them isn't weird, but you just think that it's weird because it's, it's not part of the overall paradigm that you inhabit, right? People have been using singular they, them for centuries.
I will call you whatever you want to be called. I don't care. Like, it's a normal thing, a polite thing to do, to call someone by the gender pronouns that they want to be called by. Will I use gender neutral language? Well, this is an interesting one because I genuinely think if gender neutral or non-gender neutral language affects you so greatly, you may need to harden the fuck up in life because life might be really, really fucking tough.
No one's calling you transphobic because you don't want to use gender neutral language.
But yeah, I'll try. Will I make jokes about trans people? Yes. Absolutely. In my new hour, the new normal that I'm touring around the country right now, I make jokes about everyone. From myself to Aboriginal people to trans people to autistic people. I make jokes about everybody. Now, I understand that some people...
I wonder why you're doing those jokes and what material impact those jokes might have. I wonder what overall oppressive paradigms that these serve to continue to enhance over time. I wonder what these paradigms might do to, I don't know, the suicidality of trans people. Because you can just say, well, I make jokes that punch down at trans people, but they're just jokes and ironic, so it's fine. But I don't want trans people to die. But the actions that you're engaging in contributes to a culture that does lead to trans people killing themselves. That's not one of the main reasons, and the studies and the data show this, is that lack of acceptance is what leads to the vast majority of trans people who do attempt suicide engaging in these things, right? And that's just what you perpetuate with this punch-down humour that you continually, do on your channel. You may not want to, you may not have the intention to. Your intention may just be to make people laugh, and I do probably agree that that is your intention, but that doesn't change the material impact of what you're engaging in. And that's what we care about, because whether people have to deal with the consequences.
People like comedy where they're just talking about 7-Eleven pies and oh my god, it's going to burn my mouth. No, that's not fucking me, all right? When you come to my show, you're going to be shocked. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy, and that's the reason I do that. I've tried to...
It's fucking lazy, bad humour. That's why people like Stuart Lee are funny. When there's the fucking... there's a Stuart Lee stand-up bit called Anti-Islamic Humour, where he talks about how people in the press were saying, wow, why is there no anti-Islamic humour nowadays? And then he makes a joke about how... Let me just bring up the joke. I have to play you because I don't think me explaining it is going to quite put across the reason why I get frustrated with this lazy shock humour.
Some laughs, a lot of people going, what was that?
There we go. So he starts off with some jokes that are just like bad punching down jokes from the people who are like Isaac Butterfield, who just make incredibly fucking lazy shock humour jokes about minorities.
Have you seen these Muslims they have now? It's the end of that bit. People up there going, oh, now it's picking up. I've got three,
haven't it? Yeah.
Anti-Islamic one-liners now that I'm hoping to sell on to Roy Chubby Brown. Here they are. Hey, you know we're 1 in 2 kids born in Britain today? It's called Mohammed, and that's just the girls. I've not got the exact figures. Do you know 1 in 2 Islamic hate preachers in Britain today has got hook for his hands and a bad I've done no research? You know, 1 in 2 people claim to be a spokesperson for the entire British Muslim community is in fact the unelected leader of a non-democratic special interest fringe group given ideas above its station by a misguided new Labour community bridge building initiative. Some laughs, a lot of people going, what was that? What was that supposed to be? Tell you what that was, my coming era friends. That was the best joke about Islam in Britain anyone's ever done. That's what that was. It was even-handed, it was informed. It's what you say you want, isn't it? You go, do stuff about Islam. I just did. Not like that, Stu. Not where you have to know anything. When we said do stuff about Islam, we meant make fun of their hats.
And that's the kind of humour that people who watch Isaac Butterfield want. They don't want a joke we have to know, we have to make some kind of pointed critique. They don't want any jokes which involve any kind of intellect. They just want lazy shock humour about mocking people for their hats. That's literally, that's what he does. And that's the lowest common denominator bullshit that Isaac Butterfield engages in, which again contributes to the oppressive structures that make lives materially worse for the minority communities that he mocks. And it again reconfirms the biases of the audiences that seek this out to then also continue mocking them in their real life as well. And that's the issue. Again, I do not believe that he personally has any internal biases against these people, but the way in which he engages in his humour and the way in which he engages in his online platform helps make people's lives materially worse by helping to, reconfirm those biases.
To do fucking clean humour. I tried to do that when I was starting up in the comedy scene. I wrote a joke about fucking working at Taronga Zoo and I was doing a presentation and there was a big noise in the background and everyone was so polite they didn't even notice the noise and an elephant ran through the room and everyone was still looking at me and I said, are we not going to talk about the elephant in the room? See, that fucking sucks. It's a terrible joke. And that's why I don't write clean comedy. It would have been a lot funnier, right? If the elephant ran through and started bukkake partying everyone in the room and just coming on everybody. That is the type of joke that I enjoy.
I hope they
Both of those jokes are bad.
put you away, you sick son of a bitch.
Let's have a look at some of the comments from people who really don't like me. So I've watched a few of videos. He's very much the type of gaslighting transphobe. He goes on about how trans people exist and their feelings are real to not seem transphobic, but then on literally every single issue that involves trans people, he's opposed to us and thinks it's funny to mock us because they're just jokes. 213 people upvoted that on Reddit. Sometimes things are just jokes. Sometimes I'm just fucking around. But also, a lot of the issues that I think I've been against when it comes to trans people are pretty important ones. When it comes to little things, right? Like gender neutral bathrooms. I think that is an important thing. Like if you can have a third bathroom, fucking do it. Who cares? But you shouldn't make people do it because it costs a lot of money for a place to have an extra bathroom. So some places may not have that cash.
And why then don't have to fucking make silly, stupid fucking jokes? Have a debate, have a discussion, make pointed critiques. Don't just fucking mock trans people.
Do it. So you should enforce it by law. If they want to do it, fucking do it. As far as men transitioning into women and then competing in women's sports, that's fucked. All right. I know that some people might.
It's not. There's a really great Mia Mulder video about it. Maybe you should go and watch it, Isaac.
Find that just outrageous that I say that, but it's fucked. It's not fair. And the biggest issue, of course.
Again, no sources cited, just it's bad because I say it is.
Giving hormones to your children. Like, come on. If you're 18...
No one's giving hormones to fucking children, you stupid cunt! You have to be 16 to get hormones. Other than that, it's just blockers. You are spreading misinformation because you're a misinformed, stupid, fucking idiot. Again, and it's people like you that are materially harming us because bills are being put in place in Texas, in Idaho, that are making lives, that are imprisoning the parents of trans children for existing because of this misinformation that you are spouting. God, it's fucking infuriating. Having people like you who make our lives fucking worse because you won't even do the basic research to know what the fuck you're talking about. Jesus fucking Christ.
Years old, pump yourself full of whatever, right? You can do whatever you want when you're 18. You can pump yourself full of fucking heroin. Whatever, I don't give a shit. But don't do it to a kid. How many parents have kids that grow up not to be what they thought they were going to be? Every one of them. My old man, right? My dad played professional rugby league here in Australia. Played for New South Wales, played for the Knights, captain of the Knights. Everyone was saying to me, you're going to be a footballer. I'm a fucking comedian. Point being, we are different to our parents. So if you're a parent who is transgender, maybe your child's not going to be like that. So stop fucking pumping.
No one is trans. Is transing their fucking children, you stupid bell ends. That's not happening. Why are you saying this? There's no evidence. No trans people are trying to trans their specific children. That's not happening. This isn't a point. You're making any points. You're spouting misinformed, nonsense scaremongering and passing it off as critique.
Them full of fucking hormones. Let them grow up themselves. Again, I agree with most of the human rights side of trans issues. But my big one is don't fucking jab your children with hormones at 9 years old. I just think that's a bad thing.
That's not fucking happening.
Here's an example of something that I think isn't great.
Local family claims Clay County school leaders held secret meetings with their child over gender identity confusion, and now they're suing. The father says the school didn't tell him until after the student attempted suicide.
There's no doubt that children should have parents and counsellors involved in big decisions like this. The idea that they shouldn't is just insane, not practical.
No, because that's outing. That they could get abused by their parents, Isaac. That happens all the time. The biggest factor that leads to trans suicide is parental rejection. If they think they're going to get rejected by their parents because they have gender confusion, then the school is going to need to take steps to protect them against their own parents. That happens all the time in fucking America.
And maybe it's nice hypothetically, but in the real world, it's just not. So, in summary, should trans people be treated like normal people? Of course. Should people be polite to them? Of course. Should people look after them? Of course. They're regular people in society. Also, if you are transgender, come on.
Should people spread misinformation on their incredibly large YouTube platforms to the detriment of trans people around the fucking world? No.
Podcast, and let's talk about this so we can get to the bottom of the
Yeah, well, if you're watching this, Isaac, fucking debate me one-on-one, do an actual debate, try and bring your actual fact, understand your fucking positions, right? Bring data, bring studies, bring sources, and we can have a fucking, we'll have have round houses about it. Let's bring it. Fuck it. You're an idiot. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're spreading misinformation that's making my life worse. Children are dying. Trans people are dying because of you. People like you kill trans people with the actions you're undertaking. I'm not going to be fucking nicey with you anymore. Shut the fuck up and stop talking about shit you don't know about.
differences of opinion. On that, I wanted to give you this piece of information. I've had 2 transgender people lined up to come on the podcast, and they cancelled on me because they were worried about the trans community coming after them because they don't necessarily fall in line with the thoughts of the wider trans community. What the fuck does that say about your community? So go ahead, call me what you want. I don't give a fuck, all right? I know.
Yes, because we know what we're talking about, and everybody else doesn't know what they're talking about with regards to these issues. We know what we're talking about because we understand it, because we live it, and they don't. And that's the issue. Because we have to justify our own existence over and over again. We have to be masters. We have to be complete. We have to be completely well versed in endocrinology, in biology, in sociology, in psychology, in sexology, in gender theory. We have to be completely experts in all of these things just to justify our own fucking existence. And then people like this cunt comes along, doesn't know anything, doesn't know any of the actual information, doesn't know any of the data, doesn't know any of the studies, and just thinks, well, I'm just going to spew misinformed nonsense because my opinion fucking matters, because that's what I've been spent my entire life with people telling me I'm a special little snowflake and all of my ideas are things that everybody should get on board with. No. Come back to me when you actually know what the fuck you're talking about. And these people say, well, I might not voice my opinions because I disagree. Then, you know what? If you're going to voice an opinion, it has to be fucking substantiated and not just what I think. That's the point about things like X Factor and things like all this text and number to try and change what's happening, right? Is that people think that because they're being asked, their opinion should be noted as being equal to everybody else's just because it's an opinion. No, your opinion has to be informed. There's online social media space where everyone gets to sprout their misinformed nonsense and expect everyone to take them seriously. No, you have to actually have some kind of theoretical or observational or empirical grounding for the points and opinions you make. Otherwise, yeah, fucking discard them. It doesn't matter what you think unless you're actually informed. I'm sorry.
I made this whole video, so it does sound like I give a fuck, but I really don't.
Thank you for the gifted sub, dude. Thanks, I fucking appreciate it. Jeez. I hate this stuff.
I know the person that I am. And I know the people that come to my shows. People of all different religions, creeds, colours, ethnicities, genders, all that shit. You see all these people at my shows and then you realise, okay, the real world doesn't think like this. The real world doesn't scream racist, sexist, transphobe at everything they see on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Be stinks. Toodaloo, bye.
What's a bell end? My camera's died, so we're going to finish this without the camera. But that is the most lazily written, completely misinformation spreading, refusal to take any kind of level of accountability for the things that he's saying, isn't trying to defend any points that he's made in the past. All he's doing is saying, I'm a bellend, you fucking deal with it. Which, fair enough. You can be a bellend, but then trying to then say that people shouldn't critique you for things that you say, and saying, well, you're saying that I'm transphobic, when, all I do is spout misinformation, talk a bunch of bullshit, and then make incredibly humiliating jokes about you on YouTube, which then, helps to reaffirm the biases of the people who actually hate us in real life. And you don't understand the impact of this, because you don't fucking know. You don't know anything of what you're talking about. That's the end of the segment. Fuck off.